Welcome to Tenacious Entrepreneurs, where perseverance meets purpose and every setback is just another step forward. Join us as we dive into the journeys of entrepreneurs who faced failures, embraced change, and emerged stronger than ever. Whether you're dreaming big or already on your way, this podcast is here to remind you that the end is only the beginning. Stay inspired, stay tenacious, and let's conquer the entrepreneurial world together.
Hello, this is Joseph Dupont, and welcome back to the Tenacious Entrepreneur podcast. We've got a guest here today. I'm going to let him introduce himself because we actually are friends on Facebook, and we just have a lot of the same friends, and ended up striking up a conversation, and I thought his story was interesting enough to get on the show. Go ahead and introduce yourself, brother.
I'm Jack Fridge. I have owned a couple companies, and I have a lot of up and downs in that journey, and I love Jesus.
Hey, that's a tremendous thing, man. We were just talking before we got on the show. We were just talking about I was sort of relaying some of my journey and where I came from, and how I experienced so many problems after I lost my business, my first business that I'd lost. It was so hard to find somebody that was genuine. Mm-hmm. Everybody I talked to was basically like, hey, this is the end. You might as well just go ahead and quit. You're never going to have credit again. You're never going to have the ability to bounce back. It's going to be over. And man, it was depressing. It was to the point where I felt like, well, man, I guess it's over. This is it. Like I love myself too much to commit suicide, but I thought, well, I'll just go work for somebody because I can't ever own a business again. I can't ever be successful. And so that's where I was. And you were telling me what happened with you. You said you lost a business. What was the business you lost?
Well,
or you closed or sold?
Yeah, I sold. I used to have a residential garbage company called Livingston Waste, and we sold it. We sold it for more than the market value, and we did really good selling it. And I made I kept part of the business. God made it very clear to me not to keep the whole business. He told me very clearly, sell the whole thing. Well, I was very worried about my dad not having a job. Right. I lived in my dad's home, so naturally I was, what if, this and that, when I had money coming, and I shouldn't have been worried about any of that. And he was experienced, and he would have been able to find what he needed. And God knows more than all of us, so I should have just trusted
God.
So I didn't. And within 6 months of selling, we still had front load dumpsters and trucks. We had 2 front load trucks. We had 2 roll off trucks. And within 6 months, the 2 front load trucks had rolled on their side twice. Oh. One time, we didn't even know who did it, if it was the driver or if it was the guy he was training. They wouldn't admit to it.
Wow.
So that happened, and then those 2 trucks, they caught on fire 3 times. And one time it took 12 hours for the fire department to get it out of the truck. It burnt the wires to dump it, so it just smoldered for 12 hours straight.
Wow.
They had to drill holes through it, and it was
insane. They had to
and then we hit bridges twice. So within 6 months, a lot of that investment disappeared from sinking it back into the company that we had made. And then on top of that, I invested in a landfill. There was a transfer station, and they gave us rates that were like $6 or $7 cheaper than anyone else in the state's rates. So I was like, this is a good deal. We're going to make this deal. My partner had invested probably $800,000. I invested $310,000, which was the rest of my money. And I said, look, I'm getting 14% back in interest. What could go wrong? Getting this cheap rate in the landfill. So he made his first.
On you basically.
Yeah. So he made his first 3 payments and died.
Oh.
So his company went bankrupt.
You didn't have a life insurance policy
No, but he went bankrupt. Somebody bought the company for $1 million less than he owed the bank. So we were second mortgage. So he had first mortgage, and me and my partner were second mortgage, and we didn't see anything. My partner dropped like $100,000 in attorney fees trying to get money back out of it. So then I get a lawsuit from him for $21,000 because he made those 3 payments after they had started the bankruptcy process, apparently.
Yeah.
So obviously,
it's crazy. You sort of got duped basically
Yeah.
by somebody that.
So, my wife always likes to say, every time because as entrepreneurs, as you know, you come up with 300 ideas a day of starting a new business. She's like, well, is it a good idea or is it a God idea? And that's like, so many people I know now, and they talk to me, they always bring that up, because.
Yeah, I actually have a statement I put in my book. It's called the O factor. And the only difference between a good idea and a God idea is one O.
That's right.
And if you don't get a people around you that can help you say, oh, I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
Then you're destined just to have, the good ideas and never have the God ideas.
Yep.
Let's go back, man. I want to figure out hey, where'd you grow up? What you grew up in Baton Rouge?
So what's funny is where we're doing this right now. My grandparents lived a couple streets over.
Really?
Yeah. So that's kind of funny how it went back to my roots all the way. But
that's interesting. So your
so I was
grandparents
born
from
in
New
Metairie.
Orleans?
Yeah, they're
Okay.
from New Orleans. My dad grew up in New Orleans, and I'm from. I was born in Metairie, lived in Slidell until Hurricane Katrina. Hurricane Katrina hit. We moved to Denham Springs, and
So you went to high school here?
went to high school in Denham. So
Yeah, okay.
that says my age. So I 8th grade, I was in Denham Springs, and then I went to high school.
Okay.
8th grade, so I was pretty shy. So in 8th grade, I sat there and just looked at my ID every day, all day, because I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to meet people. I didn't want to do anything. It was a weird time because, you lose everything. And
Yeah.
now at that time, we had flooded, I think, 4 times in our previous house in Slidell. And then Katrina hit, and then that was it. We moved. So we had been transplanted a couple times before that.
So I was in Katrina. I was in the RV business, and so I had, people coming in with, women that just had a T-shirt on and nothing else, and that's all they had there in the name.
Right.
Trying to get an RV and trying to get a place to stay for the night. I mean, it was
rough.
It was brutal, man.
Yeah.
You were in the 8th grade, so you were young.
Yeah. So, but my dad was part of the garbage companies that kind of handled the contracts, like Harahan and different contracts down here, and so we got to see the battlefield firsthand a couple days after, and that was horrendous. We had a camp in Bay St. Louis, and the camp, we found the majority of the camp a mile down the road, and a 30-foot tidal wave took everything out, and
Wow.
and it was probably 20 feet of debris just stacked up, and you step and you'd sink, and we were pulling each other out as we were walking. It was just me and my dad, and just the smell of just death everywhere was just
it's hard to describe. So we housed we didn't really house any of the FEMA refugees that came out and stayed in FEMA camps. We housed all of the CEOs and the head guys for Entergy and Cox Communication and all that kind of stuff like that. And I remember the RV dealership that I owned. We were on the same grid as a hospital, and so we were the only place that was open that didn't have, we had power through the storm and after the storm we had power. And I remember 3 days in, Robert Bourne came in. He was the guy he'd bought 3 or 4 RVs from me, and he had moved up in the ranks in the gas side of Entergy. And he came to me and he said, hey, he had a line of trucks when he came in, behind on my dealership. And I said, brother, what's up? And he said, man, he said, my guys haven't slept in 3 days. He said, we can't find a hotel. There's no place to stay. And he said, I remembered that you had those RVs in the back. I had used RVs that I had every RV had a plug so that if somebody wanted to see the RV, we wouldn't have to run a generator. We could just plug it in and turn the power on. You couldn't run them all at the same time. You could just had enough power to run 3 or 4, and then it would trip the brake. Because it was when I say it was the back of the lot, I had a 7-acre lot. It was I couldn't see it. It was that far back. And so I said, dude, you can go back there. I said, but I'm just telling you, you're going to have to run them on fan or something because, the air won't come on and all. He said, dude, if you let me stay back there, we got this. I didn't notice, but the next day I saw lineman trucks all pulling in. So I guess he called his friends. They dropped 7 poles in the back of my property and put power going from the...
I think my father-in-law was actually... He was with Entergy at that time, and he came down. He might have been part of the crew
that stayed there with me.
He might have been.
I remember so they dropped all the poles, and all of a sudden they had power to every one of the RVs. And then he said after a day or two, I ended up getting my guys, we had portable like toilet things because they didn't have any toilet things back there. It was just like it wasn't set up for living.
Yeah.
And so we had the little blue totes, and I paid my guys to be on poop patrol just to go through and dump all the tanks every day whenever they left. That guy had a poopy job, but but I remember like during that time, everybody was in chaos.
Yeah. Well, not to jump around, but whenever Hurricane Michael hit in Panama City, that stemmed me to start doing storm chasing with roll-off dumpsters after that. Like, not after that, but after we sold the residential stuff. And we were in Panama City, and my guy that drives for me now, my roll-off truck, he's been with me since Panama City, so like 7.5 years. And he didn't know what he was getting into. We were in my camper parked in a Lowe's parking lot using baby wipes and water bottles. Like, it was rough. We didn't have any power, nothing. We ate at Texas Roadhouse every night because it was the only place that was open. And
Thank
we
God,
heard all
Texas
these people.
Roadhouse.
Yeah.
If you want to sponsor us, Texas Roadhouse, we'll let you.
Right.
I love that place.
they were the only place open. I mean, you sit in a line for hours just to eat, and it was the only place.
I remember those days, man. We ended up going into, like, because we were with the guys from Entergy, they connected us with other people that needed things. They were like, hey, my buddies from Cox need this, and then they connected us with FEMA, and they were like, hey, they need this and they need that. And so it got to be where I owned a campground, Pumpkin Park Campground, and it got to be where we were like the headquarters for basically the disaster team. So like the head of FEMA was there, the head of Entergy, the head of everything was there on our location. And I remember in that meeting they would say, well, man, we need golf carts. Do you know anybody can get golf carts? And I said, I can take care of the golf carts. And we need generators. Right? I can handle the generators. After a while, they just came to me for everything. Like, we need catering, we need this, we need that, and we would come through. The funny thing is, like, when they left the building, I got on the internet and said, how much do golf carts rent for?
Right. That's the same thing we did with everything else. We did porta potties. We were doing everything.
Yeah, everything, man.
Everything somebody needed. Yeah, we take care of it.
Yeah, we got you, man.
Yeah. And then you look it up real quick, figure out like, find service first.
It was before ChatGPT, man. We didn't have, we barely had Google. The funny thing is, I almost didn't get my FEMA contract because we didn't even have a website. Like this was 2006. I didn't have a website. I didn't have anything, and so it was definitely like way out.
That time was crazy. I don't know if we'll ever see a Katrina.
I pray to God we don't ever see a Katrina.
Like, not only because of Katrina, but because of the time it was, where you couldn't just drop a
pin
or whatever the Elon Musk thing where you just drop a Starlink,
drop a satellite,
Starlink wherever you want. You will never have that again, where you literally everything was gone. Like,
I remember
no
there was no
service,
internet, there was no
anything.
service, there was no nothing.
Yeah.
We were just,
well, that kind of stemmed me to want to do the storm chasing, because that was kind of part of my roots. I wanted to help people.
Eighth grade, you watch your dad like doing all of the cleanup,
right? And I was there with him, and just everything. It'll never leave you when you go in something like that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to help other people. We would go into storm places, and you'd see little kids, and you say, "Hey, man, it's gonna be okay." I went through the same thing. God's got this. Everything's gonna work out for the best. And they'd always leave smiling. Because you're driving around a big roll-off truck. You're like all of a sudden a superhero.
Yeah. It was cool.
I'm like, hey, you want to get in the truck, hit the horn, pull the horn and stuff like that. And the first time we went, I didn't have my CDL yet. Yeah. So I'm driving around this truck illegally, which wasn't good. But
trust me, dude, we had caravans of guys coming from Indiana with trailers, and we literally created like a 24-hour a day circle. They would go through. Like, I remember the first time that they went and dropped off campers at the FEMA yard. I got like a contract for like 1,000 campers, and they dropped off the trailers at the FEMA yard, and my workers came back and said, "Hey, boss, it's taken us a lot longer than we thought." And I said, I was wondering, like you guys came in last night at midnight, and they're 24 hours, and you're showing back up here at 8 o'clock in the morning. Like, well, what's going on? What happened? Because they usually come back in and get paid, and they go home. And I was like, "You've been there for 8 hours." He's like, "Yeah." They're taking all the awnings and all of the stereos and all of the any of the niceties off the campers, because they don't want one person to say that they got something nicer than the next person.
Oh, geez.
And they said they're throwing them in the dumpster. I was like, what? Like, I mean, I'm selling like nice campers with everything in it. So I literally set up a around the clock crew that looked like a pit crew from NASCAR, and we put up sea cans, and we pulled off every awning, every radio, every spare tire.
Stuff that comes out the trash is unbelievable.
And threw them all into our sea cans to where we'd have them for later.
Yeah.
But it's crazy. Like the people that haven't lived through, or that weren't from here, didn't live through Katrina.
Yeah.
And don't understand. Like, there was lots of opportunity, but man, there was a lot of suffering. There was a
lot of both. Yeah.
So much suffering. Fast forward, man, like 2016, we had the flood in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and it felt eerily like that. You were old enough then to actually experience that, huh?
Yeah. I mean, I was in full blown. I had everything. That was my biggest at that point.
So you were a full blown.
Yeah, we were running
removal.
25. We had 25,000 residential customers, and we had at that time we had 2 roll-off trucks and 2 front-load trucks. But as soon as it hit, within 3 days, I had 9 roll-off trucks running, and boxes everywhere, and we were, full blown, and it was crazy.
Yeah, it was intense. Yeah,
and I had people come from everywhere, like, because it was only our little area. It seems like a lot of people, but in the grand scheme of things, Katrina was, from one coast to the other. Our situation was concentrated in Baton Rouge and Denham and Livingston Parish.
My parents lived right by the interstate, or they still do. My dad's passed, but my mom still lives right there by the interstate, across from the vegetable stand, the fruit and vegetable stand on 16, or on is that 16? Yeah, it's 16.
Yeah,
right off the interstate, and we never thought that they would have water. They got 8 foot of water.
That's crazy.
Literally covered their roof. Like it went up at one point to over the roof, and it settled at 8 feet. We got the watermark where it settled for like days, and then it went down.
Yeah, my office, we got, I don't know, probably 18 inches, and we're on Florida Boulevard.
Well, my office is on O'Neill Lane, and I was trying to help everybody, do everything. My sons had a car lot on the side of my office, and I remember thinking, well, I better go over there and get the cars out, and so I moved them all up onto the sidewalk, and then it started going up on the sidewalk.
Yeah, it was crazy, and it was so eerily slow.
Yeah, and then it was in my building, and I was like, okay, crud, I've got computers still plugged in and running.
Right.
The power's still on, so I go shut off all the breakers and take the computers out, and by the time I get outside, the cars have water up to their door. So I drive all of his cars down the street, down Old Hammond, into the subdivision to the highest point I could find. And I parked them and came back, and I was like, okay, we got them. Those cars got 4 foot of water over them.
Wow.
Like,
we brought all of my trucks to my dad's
crazy.
house, which is where I lived. And we were picking people up. We pick people up from shelters, and we're bringing them places with the trucks because the trucks are higher. And we were going everywhere, just picking people up, moving stuff around. And then one of my guys thought it'd be a great idea to take one of the trucks home to Marpaw and leave his truck at my office. Well, he ended up on the Weather Channel on top of the truck.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Dude, we had so I had a jet ski that I had taken in on a trade for something. I wasn't in the RV business anymore at that time. I was like doing other stuff. I was just buying and selling cars and boats and stuff. And I took a jet ski on trade. I remember my sons went around rescuing people on the jet ski, like going through all the subdivisions.
Yeah, like where my office is, people were launching boats.
That's when the Cajun Navy was born.
Yeah,
it was birthed out of that storm.
That situation.
I believe it was. I mean, I think it was birthed out of that storm. I remember, like, I was going out with one of my best friends, a guy named Jaime Pineda, and we had a bateau, and we were walking the bateau down Old Hammond, and that little subdivision that's right behind the YMCA. We went down there, and they you could see the tops of the palm tree, but it was like at least 10 feet of water, and there's people on top of cars and everything else. And we were walking down there. It was crazy, man. The ants, were big ponds of ants, big islands of ants. That were,
and then they had the graveyard situation.
I didn't know about that. What happened with that?
Yeah, the tombs were floating.
Oh wow! I didn't even think about that. My parents
going
lived
down
right
the
by
road.
the graveyard. I never even thought about it.
Yeah,
That's
lifted out the
insane,
ground.
dude.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Wild.
So that's
that was in Denham, I think.
Yeah, my parents live right by the graveyard. Like
Yeah.
they walk when they do their walking, they walk through the graveyard.
Yeah.
So that's insane, man.
It's just
But,
wild.
Yeah,
Mother
so
Nature is just.
Mother Nature is, man. So
Well, we messed up Mother Nature's natural occurrence of everything by building everything we've built. So between all that.
I guess everything, being as it'll go back to the way it was in the beginning. It'll go back to a bunch of the water and land.
Yeah.
But so anyways, from 2016, you were in the business of debris removal, and so fast forward, like from 2016 to now, like what happened? Like where are you at now?
Where
did it take you?
sold the residential stuff. Told you that, and then we, the situation with losing pretty much everything. My business partner actually, I had a 25% partner.
Yeah.
And he let me move into his mom's house, who had passed away about a year prior to that. So we moved in there, which is, everybody thinks I'm a millionaire at this point because I just sold my business and it was a big business, and I'm moving into my partner's mom's house and not paying anything for a year before we signed the papers.
I lost my business right after Katrina, and everybody assumed that I just retired because I made millions, and I did make millions.
Well, that's it was in 2017 that that I had sold.
So it
was right after the flood that I had sold, and everybody, I was getting. I mean, we had one guy during the flood come up to the office and. He pulled up on Florida Boulevard and he said, "Y'all need to come pick up my trash." And my dad was right there, and he said, "Sir, we can't get down majority of the streets." He said, "Well, I was able to get here, and my trash my street's just fine." He threw a coffee cup, hot coffee, in his face and drove off. We were getting death threats that people were going to burn down our building. It was crazy, like crazy time. But everybody was extremely stressed.
Everybody was stressed. So I remember in 2016, I was the only one of my family that my house was high and dry.
Well, my dad's was too, so we were very lucky with that.
Yeah, my house was high and dry, but what people don't understand is that I didn't take water; I took immigrants.
Yeah, that's what we did.
I went from having 4 kids in the house and my wife to we had at times 20 to 30 people
like
living,
families,
whole families like moving in and living and cohabiting and cohabitating. And actually, it was a weirdly peaceful time. We had worship every night. We'd have prayer time.
It wasn't peaceful for us.
But I'm saying, like in my house, it was peaceful. Outside the house,
well, we were running my work from our house, so that's why. I mean, I had all my employees were. Luckily, my dad's got a pretty good sized house. We had all my employees upstairs. We had immigrants, as you put in one area, hanging out. And
you had friends you didn't know you had friends.
Yeah,
they're like, "Hey, bro, I heard you didn't flood. What's up, man?"
Right.
Like, do I know you?
Yeah, it was wild, but
I'm coming. I'm bringing my Rottweiler.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, here you go.
Yeah.
But
we were also running those 9 roll-off trucks, and we didn't really have good service because Verizon was out. It was just
AT&T was out too.
Yeah, it was just wild. Everything was just crazy.
Yeah, everything was crazy. So you went through that. You lost everything as far as that. You sold as you invested in the landfill, and then you lost money from that.
Yeah, and all the trucks
and all the trucks and everything sort of went with it.
And then during that, we were doing the storm chase work, and we had one situation where I wanted to go to the Carolinas. There was a hurricane coming, and I'm pacing back and forth watching the Weather Channel, and my wife's like, "Are we going? Are we not? What are we doing?" I'm like, "I really want to go. I really want to go." And God keeps saying, "Just be still." But I really want to go. I really want to go. And she's like, "Well, you better figure it out." And I was like, I know, we're going to figure it out. Well, he just said, "Be still." And then it passed, 2 or 3 days passed, and I'm like, "What am I doing?" And he said, "Be still." A week passed. I'm like, "Okay, I'm not going," like at this point. So a couple weeks after that is when Panama City had Hurricane Michael come through, and was way worse. And for us, it was better for us in terms of.
But everybody, all your competitors were over there.
Yeah, well, they were not only were they over there, but logistically it made more sense. So my main broker, who I worked with, I work a lot with brokers, and my main broker got viciously sick when he went to the Carolinas and ended up not doing any work there. And he was the one pushing me to go. So because he got really sick, ended up in the hospital, I would have just been there with nothing.
You just been stuck
And he
there.
said the work they did get was 4 hours from the landfill. So we'd have been doing like 1 or 2 loads a day. We wouldn't have been able to make it. We'd have probably went out of business, to be honest.
Yeah, it would.
So we went to Panama City, and we were there for 2 years.
Man, I'm writing a book right now called Jesus, My Senior Partner, and it just reminds me so much of what you're talking about. Like in business, most of the time when we go to God, it's whenever we've had catastrophic problems. You know, I tell in the book I tell a story about Elijah and how he went out into the wilderness and was by a stream, and he had the raven bringing him food every day, and eventually God said, "It's time to move."
I feel like I've been there.
Elijah listened to God, but the thing is that the Bible says that the water dried up. It didn't say that the raven stopped coming.
Yeah.
So the problem with us is the raven represents jobs. The water represents cash flow. The problem with entrepreneurs is like if the raven's still coming, we don't even notice there's no water. We're just like, dude, we got to get these jobs done. We got to get everything hustled. We got to make it happen. And we missed the whole point.
Right.
That it was really about the provision of God. Like God's provision is the water. Without food, you can live for 90 days.
Yeah.
Without water, you got 5 days.
Yeah.
That's it. So, and cash flow is a water. And so if you think about it,
a good analogy.
You got 5 days. So day one, with no water, your mouth gets a little dry, you get a little parched. You get a little bit of frustrated, but you don't really notice it.
Yep.
And your senior partner is coming and knocking. Hey man, I need to talk to you. There's some stuff going on in the horizon. I see it. And you're not seeing it, but I'm telling you, there's something up there. And we say, hold up, there's a raven coming in.
Yeah.
I got this job. I got to figure it out. We got to get everything
right.
going, and I'm shuffling around people, and I'll be with you tomorrow, Jesus, because I got this. And the day 2 comes. Jesus is like, hey, it's getting a little more serious, man. We need to talk. Well, day 2, without water, you start getting headaches. You start getting nauseous. And so Jesus comes knocking, and you're like, Jesus, look, I got a headache right now. Like, I'm dealing with all these headaches. All these ravens keep coming, and all these jobs keep going, and I got headaches, and I'm feeling a little sick to my stomach.
Can't do anymore.
I'm actually sick of what I'm doing. I can't talk to you.
Yeah.
Like I'm sick from doing this. Just leave me alone. Day 3, the Bible says that. The way that they said it I was in studying was that day 3, whenever you don't have water, you start having serious issues, like organs start shutting down. You start getting to where you're fainting. Day 4, you're passing out for lengths of time, and he's coming day 3, day 4. Hey, let's talk, man. This is getting real. Generally, about day 4.5 is whenever we as Christian entrepreneurs that don't have Jesus as our senior partner, we start looking around. Where are you at, God? You're supposed to provide for me. What are you doing, God? Why did you forsake me? And he's like, I've been knocking for all this time. The problem is that we call on him, and he's so merciful that he rescues us. And when he rescues us, we actually begin to believe what people start saying about us. We get on podcasts, and we write books about how great we are and how we navigated our way out of this obstacle. And you know what our senior partner does? He just stays quiet. He sits in the background. I was like, okay, take the glory. Take the honor. That's okay. You're an amazing business guy. Has nothing to do with the fact that I brought you this big deal and it bailed you out. You're an amazing business
Every
guy.
single time he's bailed me out.
That's what I'm saying.
Like every time.
Every single time. And God is so merciful, man. And we just don't deserve the mercy of God. And if we put him as senior partner, that's what I feel like is like, hey, if we put him up there, that's what you were saying you did. You asked him like, hey, should I go?
Yeah, what do I do?
Like, what do I do?
I don't know what to do. Like,
but I was so arrogant that I didn't listen. I would be like, hey, Jesus, you're in the back seat. I'm headed there. Do you think we should go?
Yeah.
I got all the trucks
right. I'm already headed there.
I got all the trucks and
I have another conscience next to me saying, "Are you sure that's what you're supposed to do?"
Yeah, your wife. Yeah. Thank God for our wives.
Yeah,
man.
she's amazing.
But my wife, dude, is absolutely the strength, man, that held me to the glue.
Yeah, my wife's always like, the steady. Like so if we were to go, which we don't, but if we were to ever go to a casino, we actually went one time. So I used to have an issue with that, and I stay away from casinos. But we'd go to the casino, and I would convince her to go with me, but she never really wanted to. And of course, at the time, I didn't think that was the case. So she'd sit at the roulette table, and she would bet on, black and red, both, every time, and just sit there. And I'm like, what are you doing? You can't win like that. And she's like, I can't lose either. And I always mess with her and say, that's the Jew in you, because she's her mom's side of the family is Jewish. And
she had something there. She's conservative.
Yeah, she's very conservative, and I'm over there like, just put it all in.
All in. Oh,
like,
that's the entrepreneur in you, man.
I'm like, we got this.
Yeah, entrepreneur in you. We don't see. I remember one time I had a CPA, or no, a tax attorney, and I was sitting down meeting with him, and he said, man, you don't have any fear. Like you're like all in. Like you go, the ravine's coming up, and you just jump over that ravine, and your legs break, and you crawl up the other side, and you make it no matter what. And I was like, dude, I don't see the ravine.
Yeah.
It's not that I'm tenacious or that I'm some great entrepreneur. I just figure it out because I'm like 3 feet from the ravine and like,
there's no other choice. It is what it is. Yeah.
I'm going too fast. I got to jump.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm saying. It's like it's not anything about our entrepreneurial side of us.
Luckily, whenever that all was going on, I went one time with my brother to the state championship, basketball state championships in Lake Charles, and we went to the casino, and we're sitting there, and he's like my wife. He'll sit and play penny slots and play like $20 total. And I got up like $8,000. I'm playing, for some reason in Lake Charles, they had this thing where you could play like 8 games at the same time. That was dangerous. It was like ADHD to the max, like all these different things, and I went up $8,000. I'm like, check this out. And then like 5 minutes later, I was like, can I borrow $10? And the face he gave me, I was done. I was done right there. I was like, my little brother's looking at me with disappointment. Like, I never thought I would ever see that.
Yeah.
You know, because he looked up to me like for everything I'd ever done. And it was like, I will never do this ever again. Like,
wow.
And I was done. At that point on, I was like, never going back to the casino.
So what I found, man, is that there's addiction, roles in 5 different things. Like you can be addicted to drugs, to sex, and pornography, to gambling, to there's multiple areas you can be addicted to. But what I found is that Satan is willing to let go of one. He just doesn't show you. He's going to grab a hold of another.
Yep.
It's like,
and
okay.
He did that.
And I see people that. So is that what happened with you?
Oh yeah, he definitely did that. But
so what happened? Like
he just. One thing led to another. I mean,
somebody's saying you got rid of gambling and
I got rid of gambling, and I went in harder on
alcohol or
on just being a workaholic. And,
workaholic
and
is definitely one.
And that was like that was tough. I mean,
workaholic
that was tough
is
to
definitely
over.
one of them. And pornography is the hidden sin
that nobody talks about
of business guys. We just don't talk about it because it's like.
And
it's behind the scenes. Nobody knows.
Right. And it's the hardest battle to fight. I mean,
because you're fighting it alone.
Right.
Who do you tell?
Right.
I remember when I first got saved, I was selling drugs and smoking pot and doing drugs. And I remember I thought to myself, like, all of my new friends didn't know the old Joey. Mm-hmm. And so they couldn't identify with me. And who was I going to tell?
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't just be like, yo, man, I got like 10 keys sitting in the back of my house. Like, what am I going to do with this? Like, how do I get rid of it? And so who do we tell? That's the same thing with pornography. I feel like it's like one of those hidden, like, who do you tell?
Right. And then it's so accessible.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing.
But in this generation, it's like, it's right at their fingertips.
So
I had a friend of mine that
there's a lot of tools you got to use to be able to get away from. And I mean, in the Bible, I think it's the only sin it says to flee from is, that kind of thing. So.
Yeah. Yeah, because we always the problem with sin is that it makes a way. It's like water; it finds the lowest point.
Yep.
It'll figure out a way, man. Like you're like, well, you know what? I made it to where, I got a VPN and nobody can. My wife checks my phone every day, but we'll figure out how to find something that works that she can't get on, or we'll figure out how to whatever.
And anytime I've ever gone through it, my wife has been amazing. I mean, just through it all, like she's never come at me as like the enemy. She's always like my partner.
Yeah.
Hey, because she's my accountability partner as well as in everything in life. And, she'll always be like, hey, are you doing okay? Just checking on you. And she always knew anytime it would happen, I don't know how, but anytime I would have an issue, she would always be like, you doing okay? I'm like, how do you know this every time? Like, but anytime I would screw up, she would
the
always
intuition,
be like,
man, of a wife, man.
But it's a battle, and it's so worth fighting. Like,
Yeah. Well, not everybody has an entrepreneurial, wife, or somebody that understands, that side of your world, and it can be lonely. Like if you're struggling, like with, being an entrepreneur. I feel like I'm in AA. My name's Joey, and I'm an entrepreneur.
Right.
Like if you're struggling with it, and you don't have a wife that's supportive, a lot of times.
Well, and a lot of times it's tough.
It'd be like Job's wife, like, dude, just go ahead and die.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times it's hard for the spouse to understand because they don't deal with the same sin you deal with.
Well, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about in entrepreneurialism,
right? Well,
in general, like
entrepreneurialism too.
In entrepreneurialism, like whenever you go home and you say, "Honey, we're not going to have enough money to cover the house note.
Yeah.
We don't have the money to cover, this."
Well, what did you do?
Yeah. What happened?
My wife's like, let's go. You wanted to live under a bridge? Let's do it. Like,
and that's the thing, is that I feel like that man, it's such a blessing.
It is.
To have
It's
a
such a
wife that is
blessing.
willing to just like, hey, we got this. I remember I told my wife when I lost everything. We'd just gotten married. Been married for like maybe a year and a half, 2 years.
We got married right after I sold my business.
Yeah. So we got married. It's about the same situation.
Yeah.
We got married, and I lost everything. I went from being a multimillionaire to like trying to figure out how to pay my house note and if we're going to keep the electricity on. And I remember I went to her and I said something that I really I've said it before on the podcast, but it still rings true, man. I remember sitting down with her and I said, look, I need you to understand I release you. We're both Christians. We both love God. You didn't plan for this. You were a successful business person before I met you, and you gave up everything to be with me. If you need to go, I'm letting you know that I'm releasing you, and I forgive you, and it's not something I hold against you. I don't blame you. And she looked at me in my eyes, and she grabbed my hand, and she said, Joey, I need you to understand something. She said, you aren't my source. You never were.
God, it sounds the same.
You never were my source. And Jesus is my source, and I've learned to depend on him the same way that I'm going to depend on him in this situation. So you do what you think you need to do, but understand that at any point in this whole thing, God's got me.
Mm-hmm.
He's got me. Dude, that kind of confidence that comes from
and it takes such a weight off of...
Oh, my God.
Because we're not meant to be perfect.
Yeah.
We're not perfect. And
I didn't have to worry.
Yeah.
I didn't have to worry that because I honestly, I would in the back of my mind always thought, well, she's probably off with somebody else because I would be, if I was her, I would have just bugged out, I would have just been like, okay, I'm done. I had 4 kids when we got married and she had 1. So like I brought nothing but problems to the equation. I got 4 kids. She's used to having 1. I brought, being broke. She's used to being able to have all she wants. And, so,
and as the man, we want to be able to provide. Like, that's our whole thing. Like, I get that for sure.
So for you, like you said, your wife's very much similar, huh?
Yeah, she's very much like that. Like, I remember times where I've been like, I would send her like job listings. Like, so after I sold, I went through a really tough just be still time. Like I had to be still, and I didn't realize it, but all the money was leaving at that time, and everything was changing, and I didn't even understand why or how, or I just said, God, just tell me what to do. Like, I don't even know. Like, he just had to break me all the way down and get me to a point where I would say, where do you want me to go next? And until I got there, I think my wife also, because I kind of looked at her as like my compass, because I'd say, can I go ahead and start growing now? Like, can I grow my business now? Like, because I got off Facebook for a long time. I did a lot of things that, I just kind of went into hibernation in a way, because I had my companies on life support, and I was in hibernation, I guess is the way I could put it, because I kind of had almost like a traumatic effect after selling, because we had this huge company, it grew extremely, over 3 years, we grew to 25,000 customers, and we added a recycle facility, and we were doing recycling, and we did,
You're on top of it.
we did so much stuff, and we were so busy, and it was so much. Well, as soon as all that was lifted off of me, I was like, what do I do now? Even though I still had all this other stuff going on, it just didn't feel like I had anything going on. And but it was a moment that I needed to be still and just reconnect with God.
Well, I feel like that as an entrepreneur, and that's what I would tell guys that are listening to the podcast, is like, hey, if you are in a moment of reset, you need to realize that you're not in a moment of failure.
Right.
You're in a moment of reset. It's not the end.
Well, it's something
It's just
that
the
my
beginning.
wife always pointed out to me is, they can take everything from you, but they can't take from you what you learned, and they can't take God from you.
Yeah.
And that was something that's always stuck with me because it was early on. I'm like sending her job listings and stuff. Like, think I should go do this? Like, think I'm qualified for this? Like, clearly I'm not going to work somewhere.
Yeah.
Like
I'd make a horrible employee.
I would
yeah,
too. And
yeah,
I
yeah.
actually, somebody actually wanted to hire me recently, and after thinking about it, I'm like, I just don't think I could do something like. I just don't.
The problem is you get there and then you figure out all the problems that they have and how you can figure out how to fix them, and then they don't want to hear it.
Yeah,
and you're like,
and
well,
then
I'll
you're
just
like,
start my
why
own.
am I doing this
Like, why-
under
I'll just-
somebody that I could do it myself?
I could just do it myself. But if I put this energy into it, I might
Yeah.
as well just do it myself.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Like, why would I want to benefit somebody else's cause and I can benefit my own?
But I think talking about like getting that to that point of like of the bottom. I remember I was at the point where I sold my truck. I had a brand new King Ranch diesel truck that I paid for. I sold my truck. 3 months went by. We needed money again. I went back to my wife and I said, hey, you got a brand new Sequoia. We're going to have to sell it. We're going to get you a beater, and we'll have a A to B minivan or something, because I had 5 kids.
Right.
So you have an A to B minivan, and we're just going to have to figure it out. And I remember when that happened, I went. I took her Sequoia and I went to my office, which I still had an office because I kept like a headquarters, and I had like 4 guys there. It was at the point where it took them like 3 years to liquidate everything. So I was there for 3 years, sort of in limbo, trying to figure out what's next. And I remember I drove up to the office, and I had forgotten. I had a guy in the office that I'd let stay in one of the offices that had lost his business. And I was just basically like, hey, man, come here. You don't have to like go home and figure out, your wife's asking every day, what are we going to do for the kids? How are we going to have college? Are we going to have, I said, just sit in that office there, and like every day you come here. And I'd forgotten that he was there. Honestly, I mean, I didn't really talk to him. I was dealing with my stress and all my troubles, all my problems. And I remember he came out when I drove up, and he said, dude, you got me a new car. And I laughed, and he laughed. And I remember the Holy Spirit said, give him this car. And I thought, get thee behind me, Satan. What do you mean, give him this car? I went inside, and I remember I called my wife, and I almost cry every time I think about it, man. I called my wife and said, look, I know this is probably me, and I think this is probably just the devil trying to hurt us.
Normally when we think that.
Yeah. But honey, I feel like something told me to give him this car. And she walked through it with me. She said, well, listen, would the devil want to bless him? And I said, no. And she said, would the devil be the one that gave you faith to give it to him? And I said, no. She said, well, it might be the Lord. You just may need to do that. And I said, well, honey, you understand that means I won't have an A to B car. Like I won't come home with a minivan. I was going to the auction to sell it and buy a minivan. I won't have anything to come home with. She said, well, if the Lord told you, you need to do it. And I gave that guy the van, and I thought it was going to be some miraculous, like, the faith preachers, like, I gave him the van, I got back 6. Nope. I gave him the van, gave him the keys, signed the title, gave it to him, because I had the title. I was going to the auction.
I have one of those stories.
Yeah, signed the title and gave it to him. And he left and never came back to my office again. I think he thought I was going to take it back. But he never came back to my office again. He ended up becoming a pastor. He's pastoring Bruley. Cool. But I remember going to God and saying, God, why? Like, that didn't do any good. Like, I'm waiting. I remember people were giving me the book, The Blessed Life, and I was like, The Blessed what? Can I get the Unblessed Life? Where's that edition? Like, I want to see the God turned his back on me, like the anti-miraculous God. And I remember I was like, God, why? Like, why did you even have me do this? And I remember God spoke to me and he said, Joey, he said, I needed to get you to the point of empty. And he said, you had more moves than Jacob. I couldn't get you pinned down. I'd pin you down and you'd figure a way out. Mm-hmm. I'd pin you down and you'd figure a way out. He said, I was like wrestling with Jacob, like trying to hold you down, and I couldn't get you held down. He said, I had to finally break your hip.
Right.
I had to get you to the point of total broken to know that there's no way that you can come out of this.
Yeah.
And you know what happened? At the same time, the reason why I was selling that car is because I had to pay my house note, because they were coming to like do an auction on my house. And I was like, okay, I don't have money to pay the house note now. And I remember praying with my wife and saying, baby, we're going to have to get a mobile home or something, figure out what we're going to do, move in with your mom or whatever we're going to have to do. And she said, it's okay, baby, we'll figure it out. And she went to the mailbox and she came back crying. Well, I don't know if you know it, but most of the time when you're struggling in life, the mailbox is a PSD moment. You get the post-traumatic or PTSD, post-traumatic stress, like going to the mailbox. There's always some horrible letter.
Yeah.
We're going to come get you, or we're going to kill you, or whatever. And so she came back crying, and I was like, oh, great. Here we go, God, another one. And she said, she couldn't even talk. She just handed me the letter. And I was like, okay. I broke it out and started reading it. And it was a letter from the bank that said that they independently had made a decision to give us a 40-year loan. They modified our loan from a 15-year loan to a 40-year loan without even talking to me. And in the envelope was a check for $18,000, more than we would have sold the Sequoia for. We paid all of the money back to pay the house note current.
Wow.
I have to get chills just thinking about it. We paid everything back to get the house note current. And it was that moment that God revealed to me the joy. I had to get you to the place of dependence.
Yeah.
That to where you understood that you are not the source. Your wife understood it.
Yeah.
But you still didn't understand it. You genuinely thought you were the source.
Yeah.
You don't understand that I'm the source of life.
Right.
I choose who to reign on and who not to reign on. I bless the just and the unjust. Makes no sense to the world.
Yeah.
Total heathens.
Well, he sent us to Tennessee, so that's kind of how that.
Yeah.
I mean, my wife.
So you went to Tennessee?
Yeah, me and my wife were going through some struggles, and she looked at me one day and goes, God told me we were supposed to go to Tennessee like a year ago. And I was like, and you're just telling me this? And she's like, yeah, I just didn't feel like it was the time. And I was like, okay. She's like, yeah. So it was in a vision, and we need to start looking. And I was like, okay, what are we going to do for work? Like, what? She's like, I don't know. I'm like, I don't know either. Let's go look. So we just started driving Tennessee for almost a year. And we finally found a place in East Tennessee in Bulls Gap, and we were there for
Bulls.
Didn't have trash service.
Bulls Gap.
Yeah, Bulls Gap, Tennessee.
I need to hear how that happened.
So we didn't end up there. But
I mean, the Lord called you to Bulls Gap?
No, he didn't.
Okay.
We thought he did.
Okay.
So we signed on this piece of land. Well, my wife's very aggressive with people when she needs to be. She's like a bulldog. And the people we were buying the mobile home from, it was like the last one for this type or whatever, and we were gonna homestead and stuff, and it was on 11 acres. Well, the people wouldn't get back to us. Now, this was in September, like early September, like September 1st. And the place that was selling the mobile home was in Kentucky. Mm-hmm. This was like a big, nice mobile home, and it was like, I think it was like 2,800 square feet. It was a bigger one. Yeah. And so it'll fit our family. She's due to have a baby October, so we're September 1st. So she's calling 3 times a day, calling these people.
She's a nester.
Every day.
She's nesting.
Yeah, she's like you need to hear me. We're having this baby in Tennessee. That's all she kept saying, because God told her we're having a baby in Tennessee. Okay, so we're having this baby in Tennessee. We're having this baby in Tennessee. So we take one more last trip. We go straight to Kentucky. She goes knocking on these people's door. Where is our mobile home? Did you sell it? Where is it? And they're like, oh, the guy's not here today. We're like, okay. So I called the guy that we were buying the land from. I said, look, is there any way we can get out of this? Because we're not going to be able to do this. And he said, yeah, I'll let you out of it. I was sad. My grandkids are the same age as your kids, and there's not a lot of people in the community. They were excited. And our realtor was from that area too. So she goes, so we look at a couple places, and we're headed home. And I asked the realtor, I'm like, is there anywhere else in Tennessee? She said, well, let me look. Let me call around. We drive 8 hours, 9 hours. We end up in Jackson at the Fiery Crab.
Jackson, Mississippi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're eating dinner. It's like 7, 8 o'clock at night. We get three listings. One's close to Memphis. The other one's in between Memphis and Lawrenceburg, and then the other one's in Lawrenceburg. I'm like, okay. So the closest one's in Lawrenceburg, 6 hours away. So she's like, we look at each other, and she's like, oh, can we go look at these or what? What do you think? And I'm like, this is the last time before the baby's born. Before the new year, we're going to be able to go look. She's like, we're having this baby in Tennessee. This is not the last time. I'm like, okay, well, let's go. So we get back in the car, and I drive till 2 o'clock in the morning, stay in a hotel. We wake up the next morning. The guy that's serving breakfast is like my brother's doppelganger. I'm like, this is so comforting. Like, this is so weird. So, he's serving breakfast, and he reminded me so much of him. So we go to we got to get, so we're at the hotel like 2 o'clock in the morning. We got to be at this house at 8 a.m.
Yeah.
And we got, at this time, 3 kids to load up.
Not to mention your wife is how much?
And she's almost 9 months pregnant.
Okay, so
she's
she's
due the next
she's
month.
ready to pop.
Yeah.
So you're Joseph and Mary sitting in the middle of Tennessee.
Yeah, and she's like contracting every day. Like, she had rough pregnancies.
Wow.
But so go to the first house. It's 30 minutes away. We get there, and she looks over, and it's got a sunroom. And she goes, "I'm gonna have the baby right there in that sunroom." And I was like, "What?" She's like, "I'm having the baby in that sunroom."
Like now?
Yeah. So we get there, and it's got a big hill. So we're looking at it, and it's like 1,350 square foot. I'm like, this isn't going to be big enough, like, for what we, And then we look at each other, and like, if it works, we want the kids outside a lot anyway,
Yeah.
So it's got a pond, it's got a
Build
shop
the kids
for
a tree house, yeah.
Yeah, it's got a shop for work. It's got a big barn. It's got a spring-fed creek. It's perfect. Everything checks the boxes. Not perfect, but everything checked boxes. So the big hill, we're walking up the hill. She's got a kid on each hip and a kid sticking out in her stomach. And she's just walking up this hill, and me and the realtor are like, "Can you slow down?" Like, we're trying to get up this hill, like almost dead. So we get up there and we walk, and she's like, "I got to see the top of the hill." So we get to the top, come back down, and we go to leave, and we both look at each other and think, "I think that's it." Like, I just feel like that's it. It's not perfect, but I feel like that's it. So then we go look at the other one in close to Memphis, or closer in between, the one that was in between there in Memphis. And it was 5 bed. This one was 3 bedroom, 1.5 bath. The other one, 5 bedroom, 2 bath, like 2,000 square feet on 20 acres. The other one was 11 acres.
Yeah.
So, and it wasn't hilly. So, like, common sense tells you this is perfect for what we want to do. It had one little building on it, and we're looking at it, and we get to the end, and we're like, "Oh, okay, that was cool. We don't really want to look at the third one." And we both looked at each other, and we're like, we're gonna go with the first one. Now, when I lived here in Louisiana, I couldn't get financing for anything.
Right.
These people had us close on that loan on this house. The first one we looked at, on the 22nd, we closed. We had a loan, everything. We were moved in by the 22nd. She had the baby October 15th in the sunroom with the midwife from Louisiana.
So is it you moved in when? What?
September 22nd.
September 22nd you moved
October 15th we had the baby.
in the sunroom.
In the sunroom. And
The midwife from
Louisiana.
So who was the midwife?
Her name's Sherry Daigle.
She's the one that actually was our midwife.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Small
she's
world.
she's awesome.
everybody's midwife, yeah.
She actually quit working where she was working to come up there.
Yeah.
And start her practice again.
Yeah,
on
she's
her
a
own.
doula now, I think.
Well, no, she's a midwife.
She's a midwife. Or she was doula then.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, when
she's
we
a
had-
stay-at-home midwife,
Yeah.
like or whatever it's called, a home birth midwife.
Yeah.
And
So
but
she-
yeah,
Yeah, she
So-
actually delivered my last 3
she delivered
or 2.
4 of my 5. I delivered the 5th one.
Okay.
So that was something. That
So
was fun.
man, yeah, so she
I'm a
had
mid-husband too.
She had it in the sunroom.
She had it in the sunroom, and she, the craziest thing. Well, no, this was the next one. So she had the baby. Within 2 weeks from that, she almost went sepsis and died. Didn't die, but almost did. Our neighbor next door, or across the street, had a urologist that he went to regularly because they had to cut out his cancer that he had gotten a lot. So he had the guy's
Cell phone
number. He texted him, told him what was going on. We were there that evening to get looked at. Where we were before, she had a urologist because she had a lot of kidney stone issues and she had surgeries and stuff. And we wouldn't have seen him for 2 weeks. Like, she would have died.
Right.
And
So you
so
went
I think
straight in.
that was God's intervention completely.
Yeah, so you went straight in.
Went straight in. She was nursing a newborn, so they had to figure all that out. So the next morning, she had the surgery. She ended up having 3 surgeries to clear out. She had a 13-millimeter kidney stone that got infected.
Wow.
And
so if you hadn't,
if we hadn't moved, she wouldn't be here.
yes, I'm saying if your wife was hearing from God.
Yeah, that's completely different perspective of, oh, I didn't move and I got punished. No, she'd have died if we didn't listen.
It's different than not hearing God's voice and just suffering.
It's different than, oh, my company suffered a little bit and we lost some money. Money's not important.
Put it in perspective. Like we can make money again.
Right.
It's not.
So
it's
since
not
we've
the end of the
been
world.
in Tennessee, everything we've touched has been blessed.
Okay.
It's been unbelievable.
So you're living there in Tennessee now?
We're living in Tennessee at that house, and it's just, we have people at our house 2 to 3 days a week, just ministering with them, just telling our story, just all the different, it's unbelievable. The community that we've gained we'd never seen that. Even
That's
when we had all those employees, it wasn't the same. Like, people don't know who we are, and we just all get together and hang out. And my kids, we were there for 2 months, and they had 40 people at their first birthday party.
Wow.
But that area is growing.
And so
from
what
people.
part of Tennessee is it?
It's Middle Tennessee. It's Middle South Tennessee.
But what's the name of the?
It's Lawrenceburg.
Lawrenceburg. Okay.
Yep. So we live in between Lawrenceburg and Waynesboro in like a no man's land area. Our name of our street is Suckstem Branch, and the one off of ours is Fish Trap and Little Fish Trap.
Okay. Sucks what?
Suckstem Branch. Yeah. So
were they saying sucks them branches or what? Sucks them
I don't know.
It's probably some branch of a river or something.
Probably.
Creek
Yeah,
or
I think it
something.
is. But everybody's like, "How did you even find this?"
That's insane.
God.
Man.
Just,
that is a
it's wild.
tremendously insane story.
Yeah,
man.
and we're in the middle of nowhere. Everybody's like, "Man, y'all live so far out," and we're like, "No, we live in the perfect spot."
Yeah, you live in the perfect spot. So you found a good church.
Yeah, we found a good church that we go to, and we actually. What's funny about that is that's a continuation of that story. So she had the kidney surgery. We had people bringing us food for like 2 or 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
We'd never had that before when we had any of our babies, much less the surgery. And it was actually the Seventh-day Adventist group that came out, and they were awesome.
Yeah.
But they don't eat meat.
Yeah.
And I like meat.
Yeah.
And we struggled a little bit there, but we were so grateful.
Yeah, my sister-in-law was raised Seventh-day Adventist, and she doesn't eat meat and is always.
Yeah, it was tough. Yeah. And so we had this group or these people that were friends with them that reached out and said, hey, they called Jamie and they said, do you eat chicken nuggets and sweet tea? And we're like, yeah. So I messed with that. We go to that girl's church, that lady's church.
They had you at sweet tea, huh?
Oh, yeah, they even had sweet tea. I scarfed that stuff down. But so we always mess with the lady that brought it, and I tell her she's got Chicken Nugget Ministries now. That's her new ministry.
So what's the name of the church you go to?
Green River Tabernacle.
Green River Tabernacle. Okay, so that's awesome. You guys got involved and got a part of it, a small church,
it's a small church. Yeah, the pastor's
church.
Been pastoring that church for I think 52 years.
Yeah,
he's been there a while.
I think that it's lost, like the small town church, the small home church. Culture, dinner on the grounds, and
what's funny is there's a lot of churches in that area that are home churches.
Yeah,
like they
literally
do it in their home, and they have 3 or 4 families that do church with them. And we actually just did Passover for the second time. We went to a church the first time, and this time we did it with another family. And between the two of us, we had 10 kids. So
that's so cool.
It was pretty neat. And we did it, based on Jesus.
On the Jewish principles.
Well, based on Jewish principles, but based on, Jesus.
Jesus being the bread.
So, it was fun to blend it and be able to.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Like I've watched The Chosen, and there's some things on it that I'd say, well, it's a little bit of your opinion. I don't know if it's all, biblical, but I like the fact that whenever I watch the Passover, I just never really thought about Jesus took Passover, like as a Jew. Saying like he was a Jew.
Well, a long time ago, I think it was Constantine when he kind of blended different religions, holidays. At that time, the Jews and the Christians didn't like each other.
Right.
The Jews were killing the Christians. So what they did is they said, look, we're not celebrating your holidays, but they are the holidays of the Bible. I mean, Passover is supposed to be celebrated till the end of time.
Right.
We don't even know what any of the holidays are as Americans. We just know.
We don't have traditions that have been passed on.
Yeah. So,
the Feast of Tabernacles and
and he said make sure that you tell your generations and generation and then they said, well, Jesus fulfilled it. Well, yeah, he fulfilled it. We still need to honor it. Like that's.
Yeah, I think it's cool like that. What I liked about The Chosen was like seeing Jesus actually taking the Passover, going through the stories of Esther in the Bible and talking about the Feast of Tabernacles and the different feasts and stuff that they went through.
Right.
It's just cool seeing that and like correlating. My brother-in-law goes to a Christian Jewish church. I don't even know how they pronounce. I don't know if that's correct.
I don't know.
He's Christian and Jewish at the same time. So they go through a lot of that, and they do a lot of the Passover and every
we're
Sabbath.
learning. We don't know nearly enough about all of it.
It's so cool, man. Like to see like all of the principles. And the thing is like we're not bound by it. It's not a law,
right?
That brings us justification. It's just something that we can do to bring a.
Well, it's to honor them. It's to honor the past and the people
What's
that were
happened.
involved.
Like do this in remembrance of me. Jesus did it with the Passover, and he said, break bread and do this within remembrance. To have remembrance of me. I think that's he was saying is like, hey, I have fulfilled it.
Right. I am the
remember
Passover.
me. Yeah. Remember me. Don't just. I think people just forget it. But anyway, man, that's so cool that you found like a really good church, and you're like, getting grounded.
I mean, we plugged in.
Your kids. How old are your kids now?
7, 5, 4, 2, and 3 months.
Okay.
So we've had another one since then.
Okay. All right. So
and that one was the one I home birthed. I mean, I was the mid husband. I'm adding MH to my initials, mid husband fridge. But it was all God. I mean, so the midwife wasn't able to make it. Sherry wasn't able to make it. Last minute, she had scheduling conflicts, and one of her friends who had also had a free birth in the past, and she had 5 kids. She ended up being like almost like my assistant / like other doula, midwife kind of thing.
Kind of coming in and helping.
Yeah, so I kept all the notes. It was a lot harder to be the one taking all the notes and making sure everybody was in each spot. But I will say, the ladies that were there were kind of impressed because I would say what she was going to do before she was going to do it, because I remembered from past pregnancies, like, okay, this is how she acted. Based on that, this is what's going to happen.
Right.
And because when you're at a home birth, you're involved as the husband. Yeah. It's not like you're just standing there waiting for somebody to do something.
I recall this. It's been a long time ago, but I recall it. It's to me. We ended up teaching the Bradley method. We went through and became teachers and certified trainers and everything. And I think that's what a lot of women like don't understand. Like the pain has its limits.
Yeah.
And I think in correlation, like to small business entrepreneurs. It's the same thing. Like we have pain, but it's great to have somebody come along and say, hey, there's limits.
Right.
This isn't going to be forever.
It's like when I first started my business, my mom actually drove my truck because I was too young to be on my insurance. So I would hop, and then I would drive the recycle trailer and pick up the recycling. And I don't know if you know Don St. Romain. He was a business owner, and he's passed away now, but we stayed in back at his shop. His company was sewer treatment specialist in Denham, and
I do know who he is. Yeah.
We stayed in the back of his shop when we started.
He just had a fire recently at his place.
I'm not sure.
He
had passed away like a couple years ago, but he was he come back there one day. My mom accidentally, she got out to dump one can, and she got the fork stuck on the inside of the can because that truck had little forks that grabbed the can and dumped it. You had to do it manually, though. So they got stuck inside of it. And he goes, hold up. He just walks up and he goes, Lisa, they can't eat you. And it was such a weird thing to hear at that time. They can't eat you? What do you mean? Like, I have no idea what that even means. Who was going to eat you? But as I got older, I understand what he means by that. Like you just said, limits are only going to be so high. They're not, once you hit a certain threshold, it's not getting any higher than that. Well, people always ask me, how do you deal with the stress? I don't deal with the stress. I give it to him.
Yeah.
And they're like, what? I'm like, I give it to God, and he deals with the stress.
Yeah, but the problem is we're living sacrifices. So we give it to God, and we're like, but let me take it back and show you what I can do with it. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sure. So, wait a second, I got this. Oh, hey, you go. And I think that, like, teaching business owners, and that's what I would encourage you, man, like when you go back into your hometown and you're dealing with your church or whatever, like I started a Christian businessman's luncheon at my office, and it's grown to where we have like 40 people that come to it now, and we can't fit more than 40 people. So like the last time we had like time before last, we had like 42 people. I remember my son and I started together, and I remember telling him, dude, I think I'm gonna have to sit at my desk. Like we can't fit in the conference room.
Yeah.
And I just encourage you, man. Like there's guys out there that don't understand this.
Yeah.
They don't understand this Jesus principle. They don't get the understanding of how to make him your senior partner. Like, it's one thing to say it, but it's another thing to live it.
Right.
And it's easy to say it whenever you're making
Everything's on top.
Everything's on top. You're making money and everything's handed. But I've learned in my life, like, I started trying to identify. I used to, before, I would try to identify people that are on their way up, and I try to partner with them and match with them and try to catch their energy and rise up. But I actually have started finding, like, can I find people that are on the way down?
It's the grinders.
The ones that are struggling, that are about to lose it. Like, if I can find those guys, I can identify with them. Like, we speak the same language. I understand where you've been. And so just like a Bradley, method or teacher, like you were saying, like, you learn from the pregnancies of, like, what's next. Like, you should be able to find business leaders or business people that are struggling, and you can tell them, hey, this is what's next.
I have actually found a couple that have reached out, and we've talked, and I've talked to one guy that he is part of this group that they wanted to have meetings, and I told him about that because I'm not as connected as he's from there, so I talked to him. So I think something might come of that.
There's a great group called Christian Businessmen's Connection. You ought to check them out.
Okay.
We went and visited them. Like, when I first started our Christian Businessmen's Luncheon in February. So, I mean, this was like recent.
Yeah.
But we started the week we started it. I went online, and my son is a bit of a fanatic with business. Like, he studies everything. He just turned 30. But he's like, Dad, we have to figure out if this has been, the term Christian Businessman's Luncheon has been, trademarked or something. I was like, dude, it's been trademarked by Jesus, man. Like, we're good, man. Like,
if somebody else is gonna sue
if
you
they're gonna
over
sue us
that,
over this, man, like, we're gonna be in trouble. But so he looked at it, and I looked it up at the same time, and we both contacted each other. We're like, hey, man, they got this Christian Businessman's Connection. Like, it's very similar, and they may have a problem. So, like, Case reached out to him, and we ended up getting on a conference call, and I told him our vision of what we're doing. I said, look, I no means do I want to step on your toes. I'm not trying to come across and take your domain from you. And I said, if we need to change our name or whatever, like, we're amicable to that. We'll work with you. And they said, no, like, hey, this is a kingdom. Like, we're all about the kingdom and about building the kingdom. As a matter of fact, we're having an event for all of our leaders in, I think it was in Florida. And he said, if you want to come down, you guys come down. Like, we'll put you up in a hotel and let you guys see what we're doing. So we went down there and visited with them. They started during the Great Depression in Chicago. And they, over 100 years ago, they're still carrying on the same traditions. And so we listened to all of their stuff, and basically we're like a lizard in the king's palace. We're just sort of hanging out, listening, because we're not a part of the network, but we're just listening to the network. And I remember I told them, I said, look, guys, we'd be glad to merge with y'all down here and let you be a part of it, or we can be a part of yours, or whatever you want to do. But ultimately, like, we have a little bit different path that we're going down, because we're going towards, really, their more discipleship track is where they're just focused on. They really, I shouldn't say that, they have multiple venues, and I don't want to, like, besmirch them, but I'm saying they focus on discipling, and then they have other meetings for, like, young people meet together and old people meet together, and then and there's a lot of segregation. And for me, like, my vision is to, like, bring all of them together, and hopefully the young can listen to the old, and the old. And so I want to, like, my vision was to do like, we take 15 minutes and we do a master class on business, so that I can attract. I look at that like chumming the water. Like, when you go deep sea fishing, I just chum the water with somebody to come in and talk about ChatGPT or some business, strategy. And so I get the sharks coming in. They're not saved. They're coming in, and they're looking to, well, can I learn to kill people? I'm going to figure this out. And so they're coming in, but then we do a 15-minute masterclass on faith and family. I don't say, on the Holy Spirit and the power of the fourth dimension, and because the guys coming for the shark, the sharks coming in wouldn't come in.
No,
they'd be like, oh, I don't know about that. But what I've found, man, is, like, identifying with these guys is helped, because my vision is that our vision is that we're gonna take 15 minutes and have table time, and in that table time, we're seeing that we align a lot with the Christian Businessman Connection, because we're finding that there's one guy at that 7-person table that really is super hungry and wants to go deeper.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found with their system, and yet you can check it out, and actually, if they don't have one in your area, you may want to open one because it's very organized. But what I found with their system was it was really cool because they give you like apps and websites and a 12-week track to take someone down, and you end up being with them for life.
Yeah.
But it's 12 weeks to, hey, you really want to go deeper with God, but you don't even know if the Bible's real.
Yeah.
You don't even know if Jesus really is the Son of God. Like, how can you prove it? There's no apologetics that we really learn in Christianity, like that teaches us these principles. Let's go to Bible college. And I went to Bible college, so I learned a little bit.
Yeah.
But I ended up dropping out because I ran out of money. But yeah, I went a little while. But I think getting in there and getting that teaching where you can take somebody down a path and lead them to being a firm, strong man of God.
Mm-hmm.
The statistics are, if a man leads his children and his family to go to church, you're 70% more likely that your children are going to serve God.
Yep.
70%. And if a woman is the leader in the house and is like nudging the guy and trying to force him and he goes begrudgingly,
Right.
It's 10%. 10% chance
Crazy.
that your children are going to serve
Well,
God.
that's the thing. When we were looking for churches and when we moved, I was like, I want to make sure we end up at the right church. And look at their fruits. Look at their fruits.
Yeah.
And first thing I noticed, I'm like, there are so many men in this church. The pastor's in the church. His children are in the church. His grandchildren are in church. His great-grandchildren are in the church, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all there.
Yeah.
There's other families where multi-generation is there. And it's like, that's fruit. You know, that's the fruits that happen from what they did. And I think that's so important. And it starts, like you said, with the father.
Yeah.
And you got to have a strong, father figure taking everybody to church.
Well, I at this meeting, I had a guy that stood up, and he was about 80 years old or 85. I met him and talked with him, but he stood up and they were honoring him, and he said he had personally discipled 200 men that he led through the disciple track that he's still connected with to this day. He started in the 70s.
Wow.
He's still connected with to this day, and it represented 10,000 men because he had 5 generations of people.
Yeah.
Like, he taught them to be disciples
Right.
and to be disciplers. And if you follow the Great Commission, it says, go into all the world and make disciples, teaching them in the way they should go. And the whole premises of this is that we're supposed to make disciples that make disciples.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be about us just,
Yeah.
like, I feel like that I've just, like, come up to the feeding trough and I've gotten glut with all of this knowledge and all this, stuff
Yeah.
that God's taught me.
Well,
and,
that's kind of my thing, too. Like, while I've been in this kind of silent period, or in the wilderness, I guess you could say, I've been all about, like, how can I personally grow? And then when we moved, it's like something just clicked and changed
It's
to where it
others.
was like, we need to be helping others do this. Like, this is something that other people need, too. And God called, like you just said, he called us to do that.
Yeah.
And we don't have to be perfect. I mean, Peter wasn't perfect. Peter was Peter,
Yeah.
I mean,
Peter was a dumpster fire, man.
yeah, I mean, if he can do it, we don't have to have a degree to do it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, it's what God said. I'm going to build a whole church around this
Yeah.
guy. Like, this guy
around
understands
somebody
it.
that's,
Yeah, this guy's a dumpster fire.
Yeah.
I remember I was at I went to a AutoZone, O'Reilly's, or it was AutoZone. I went in AutoZone, and I did like always, hey, how's it going? Yeah, I'm friendly to everybody. And I remember the lady behind the counter, she interacted a little bit, but my son had a flat tires next door, and I was like having to go back and forth
Yeah.
to get stuff. And so we came in the second time, and we're standing in line now. There's 3 people in front of us. It's a Sunday, and we just got out of church, and I was talking to my son, like back and forth about what Pastor Jonathan has spoke on, and how it's so powerful and so applicable and this and that. And so we got at the front register, and she said, "What church you go to?" And I said, "Well, we go to Bethany." And I said, "What church you go to?" She said, "Oh, I go to Healing Place." I was like, "Oh, that's great. I love Mike Heyman and all those guys are there. They're amazing." Dino mentored me when I first got saved, and then I had a lot of common ground, and I left, and I came back the third time, and there was nobody in the store besides us, and I got to the register and I said, "Hey, how can I pray for you?" And she looked at me, and there was such a long, awkward silence and pause that I felt awkward, and she said, she started getting tears in her eyes, and she said, "I didn't want to say anything." And she said, "But my life's a dumpster fire. Like I'm not I'm not at Healing Place. I haven't been there in 6 years. I said I was there just because I felt weird not saying I was there whenever you were talking about it, but I don't think I can, I don't know what to tell you to pray for me about. And I said, look, Peter was a dumpster fire. Jesus mentored this man for 3.5 years, taught him everything he knew, said, you're going to be the one I'm going to build this whole church around. And the dude jumps up and chops the guy's ear off as soon as he comes into the first moment of frustration. And you can see Jesus rolling his eyes.
And then right after that denies him.
You can see Jesus rolling his eyes being like, dude, really? Picking up the ear and putting it on the side of the soldier and like, really? Like, this is what you're going to do? Like, and I said, that's the guy, the dumpster fire, that Jesus said, I think I can work with this.
Yeah.
I said, now, if it was me and I was Jesus, I would have stopped at the first Holy Trinity School of Prophets and went ahead and got those as my apostles.
Yeah.
I would have gone through to the Jesuit school and found the Jewish priests that were coming up.
He did get Saul, but that was later.
Right, but he got Paul, who was later on. But I said I would have gone to the educated. I would have gotten all Pauls. Right. I would have had all Pauls.
Exactly.
Because I'm going to believe
the all-star team.
Let's get the all-star team. Like, let's not go.
Well, that's because we're not from an upside-down kingdom.
And that's the thing. Is like Jesus, went after the dumpster fires, and he was okay with taking those guys and working with them. And that girl, we prayed with her, and she said, "I'm going to church next Sunday. You just encouraged me. I know that I'm going to make." And I remember I left there, and I was at my office. I just bought this mobile sign company, and I had 2 new vans that I bought, and they're like big expensive vans. That's a long story, but I won't get into it. But I bought these vans, and I didn't even know how many miles were on the vans. Like I didn't even know how to check the mileage on the vans. I got in the van, one of the vans, and I'm pressing the button trying to figure out how to get the mileage up, and it's one of the 2022s or whatever. So it's like doo doo doo. We cannot tell you it. Dude, I finally left. I was like, okay, and then it pops up with the mileage. When I let all my fingers off of it.
Right, that's about right.
Yeah, it's like, okay, if you're just, there's a message in that, but the thing I got was that right beside it had an hour meter, and it was showing the hours, and the Holy Spirit spoke to me. This was like that Monday morning, like right after this, and he said, I've got one of those in heaven, and I thought, okay. You got a mileage meter on my van in heaven? Like, what are you saying? And he's like, no, it's a mileage meter on your life. I know the day and the hour and the second that you're going to pass into eternity. And he said, my mileage meter counts backwards. And he said, I'm looking to you to see if you're redeeming the time, because you don't know how short of a time you have. You might only have, an hour. You might only have 30 minutes. You might only have 3 days. You don't know. And he said, when you come to heaven, we're not going to discuss all of the businesses you started. Mm-hmm. We won't even check your bank account. Matter of fact, we're not even going to worry about anybody that you gave money to. That's always just for your glory anyway. So we're not going to concern ourselves with that. We're going to sit down, and they're going to play a big movie projector, and we're going to go and look at every soul you interacted with. We're going to look and see, like, what was the interaction? And he played it in my mind. Like, that's the way the Lord works with me. He just plays things in my mind like a video. And he showed me that girl, and he showed me, like, it was a cashier that I talked to like years ago, or that I didn't talk to. I was years ago, and he showed me, like, walking up to the cashier, and she was like, "Hello, how are you doing?" And I was on my phone, and I was just like, "Can't you see I'm on the phone?" Like I was just insulted, that she would try to talk to me while I'm on the phone. And so I just kept on, like, talking on the phone. And he showed me her life, and he said, what you didn't know was that night, before she came to work that morning, her husband had beat her, and he had been beating her, and she was in an abusive relationship, and she almost didn't come to work that morning, but she decided to put caked on makeup, and I was looking at her thinking she was some harlot because she had caked makeup all over and looked like something out of a movie. And so I didn't want to discuss anything with her. And he said, she was reaching out to the light of the world. See, you're the light of the world. Mm-hmm. God says that don't let it be under a bushel and hidden to where people can't see it. He put the light in us. And he said, you're a bringer of light. That's what Jesus' name was meant, was that he's a bringer of light. And he said, she came to the bringer of light, you, my ambassador on this earth, and you denied her. It's like almost a Titanic, if you're like you see the Titanic, and throws up a flare, and the big ship just turns.
Yeah.
And goes away. And he said, you just turned away. And he said, I want to play that out for you and show you what happened. Like if you had just spent seconds or moments in investing in her life and just saying, hey, how are you doing? I'm not talking about leading her to Jesus.
Yeah.
Just investing in her life. She would have had her life changed forever. 6 months later, a total of 20 people would have invested in her life, just little nuggets. And she got to the point where she could look up and talk to you.
Yeah.
And then she got to the
Just
point where she
chipping
could
away
carry a
at it.
conversation. And then she got to the point where she went to church. Then she got saved, and her whole life got saved. And then he showed me generations of children and people that got saved because of that. And then he showed me what really happened. And I don't know if it really happened or not because I never saw her again. But he said, you didn't engage. She thought, yeah, I was right. I had all these suicidal thoughts, and I was not worth even talking to. This guy's not going to even acknowledge that I'm here. And she went on with multiple people not acknowledging her, and she ended up committing suicide because you didn't choose to engage with her. And he said he's going to play every single interaction with a soul that I've ever had.
Yeah.
And I started thinking about it, and like, oh my God, like how many cashiers, how many waitresses, how many busboys, how many. I felt like the guy on that movie with the children that the Jews that he rescued, Schindler's List.
Yeah.
At the end of the movie, where he's looking at his watch and he said, "I could have sold this. This could have rescued one. I could have sold that. That could have rescued one." And I thought, man, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be the one at the heaven's throne. He showed me what's going to happen is like all of the things that I did, the souls that I had interactions with. I always thought that my crowns were going to be on my head, like stacked up for some reason. That's my mind. I pictured like a big bunch of crowns that we're going to throw down at his feet.
Yeah.
He showed me a cart, and he said, you're going to get the crown from this. He's going to say, well done. The times that you actually interacted with the soul and it had an impact. He's going to show me all the generations that were impacted after. Well done, thou good and faithful servant. He's going to give me the crown, and I'm going to throw it in the bucket behind me because I'm just focused on Jesus. That's when he said, you're going to cast it at my feet.
Yeah.
It's because I'm just like, dude,
Because it doesn't matter.
I don't care, Jesus.
No.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't care, Jesus. But think about the shame that I'm going to feel when he shows me the person that says, hey, this is the interaction that you didn't have with them.
Right.
And this is the life that they ended up leading, and they ended up going through 6 marriages, and they had all this. Not all of them could commit suicide. Some of them are just going to be horrible people.
Yeah.
Some of them are just going to be people that don't know Jesus. They
Right.
may be great people.
It's funny because that's not funny, but that you said about the light, because we always tell our kids anywhere we go, what's rule number 1? And they always say, show God's light. And that's like their thing. Like they're so proud of it and they're so bold in their faith. And I feel like I learned more from them than they learned. I mean, and God says, Jesus says that,
Raising little children,
and have childlike faith. And they definitely teach us how to be, childlike. And their faith is just so big and bold. And every time they get out and they show the light. And I remember being in church when my oldest was like, I don't know, maybe 3, and she'd run through the whole church singing "Jesus Loves Me," and I'd get embarrassed because I was like, you're not supposed to do that, don't do that, and I didn't know any better, and as she did it, I would fight myself to not say something. I wanted to be like, don't do that, don't. And I don't know why, but I always wanted to. There was always a pushback inside of me, like internally. There was a struggle. And now I'm the one doing it to her. I'm like, come on now. Come on. You remember when you used to do this? And she's like, no.
We're going to wish that they would, man.
Oh, man. And I encourage the other ones. I'm like, go, do it. Do it. I'll do it with you.
Yeah.
Because he does love you.
I tell people all the time, man, there's no grandchildren in heaven. There's only children of God.
Yep.
And I told my kids growing up, hey, listen, you need to understand you can't serve my Jesus.
Yeah.
You have to have a personal experience with the living King.
Yep.
And then when you have that experience, nobody can take it away from you. I think about the guy that got healed from blindness in the Bible, and he had complete healing, but the church has basically said if you pronounce Jesus as a prophet, you're going to be kicked out of the synagogue.
Yeah, he's like, great.
And dude, that guy was like, wait, let me tell you more about Jesus.
Yeah.
Or you want to be his disciple? Let me tell you about how God did this for me. Jesus is amazing. Jesus. So the guy had an experience with God.
Right.
Now let's look at his parents. They're second generation. They're secondhand experience. The first time that the Pharisees said, "Hey, what's going on with your son?" Well, you can ask him, because I'm not going to say anything, and that's the same thing with children. Like, we cannot depend on our children having a second generational experience.
Right.
And
I tell
having
them that
lasting
too.
relationship with God.
Yeah, because
they got to have that deep.
Well,
interaction.
Was it Jacob that God told you? You know, you got to have your own faith.
Yeah.
I think it was Jacob. You can't have your fathers or your grandfathers.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's so true, because, like you said, the experience, and that's for anything, business even. You know, you have people that second, third generation business owners, and
they lose everything.
They lose everything because they have no idea how they got it.
They didn't work for it. They don't appreciate it. They don't understand.
And then they lose it and go, "What happened?" Well, you didn't grind to get that, and you didn't understand how to get it and keep it. And appreciate it.
Yeah, it's amazing, man. Well, listen, brother, I greatly appreciate you coming out here and sharing your faith with us and sharing what's happening in your life. And I can honestly say I've been encouraged, man, just hearing all your testimonies and your stories. And we have a lot of similarities. We're gonna have to get our wives together.
Yeah, definitely.
That sounds like it'd be a good time. But I just wanted to close out in a word of prayer, man. Can you close us out?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
Dear Lord, we thank you for bringing us together today, and the viewers that are here today. We ask for you to touch their hearts and touch ours, and help us continue to humbly be your servant, Lord, and help us have all the experiences we need to glorify you through all things we do, Lord. We love you and we honor you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, brother.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
That's it for this episode of The Tenacious Entrepreneur. Thanks for tuning in and being part of this journey. Are you an entrepreneur with a tenacious story? We want to hear from you. Visit our website, tenaciousentrepreneur.com, and click on the Tell My Story link. If you got something valuable from today's episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with a fellow entrepreneur. Keep pushing forward, and remember, the end is only the beginning. A new episode drops every Wednesday at 7:14 a.m. Until then, remember to stay humble, stay focused, and be tenacious.